Deep within the vibrant and ever-changing ecosystem of the PA Woods Vivarium, the balance of power is shifting. In this microcosm of Pennsylvania's wilderness, every toad must stake their claim, and at the heart of it all, a battle for supremacy is unfolding. As we left off in the last episode, Baldwin, the rising star, and Junia, the female American toad, are continuously battling to try to stake their claim and take the top spot to become the alpha of this enclosure. Ananias, the male American toad who's the patriarch of this ecosystem, has taken some time off, and he's gone into estivation for the winter. With his absence, it created another power vacuum inside this enclosure, and Baldwin and Junia were fighting to try to control the order and establish their dominance inside this ecosystem. As you could see, when we last left off, Baldwin was very nervous and a lot more unsure of himself and the surroundings. He was also not willing to compete for food. But in this episode, you'll see he does a complete 180, and he does challenge Junia, as you see her in this beautiful shot from the new camera and lens in this episode. The relationship between Baldwin and Junia is one of the most fascinating that I've ever seen. They view each other as rivals and competitors, but they're always hanging out together. As you can see, Junia has no problem literally hopping right over Baldwin, especially right after she's soaking wet, and she drags her lower body right across his face as a sign, in my opinion, of disrespect, just the way that she crawled out of that water dish right over top of him. But even though she's done a lot of hazing and bullying to poor Baldwin, he's also been able to get her back by taking away the precious food that she seeks. Baldwin, even though he gets bullied, it doesn't seem to faze him. He's willing to go in for the strike and take away even the most smallest of prey items from Junia. And I think, honestly, he's leveled the playing field by choosing to go the high ground and not let her rattle him. And now that he's figured her out, it's a lot more interesting to see how it's almost a cat and mouse type of game between them whenever it's feeding time. But the question is, would his newfound confidence or Junia's methodical behavior be able to propel them above Ananias to claim the top spot? It was only a matter of time before Ananias came back out once he realized that it wasn't going to freeze. American toads are not freeze tolerant like other frogs in Pennsylvania, so they have to dig down literally at times 3 feet below the frost line if they're going to survive the winter. If they don't get below the frost line and they freeze, they die. So Ananias took the proper care of himself that he thought was necessary. Becoming aware of all the commotion above the surface, Ananias decided to come out from his weeks-long estivation and crawl over to where all the action was happening. He began to check out everything that was going on inside the enclosure since he last left off. To his surprise, he encountered Baldwin, a rival male American toad who generally is thought to be around the same age that Ananias is. I wonder what was going through the mind of Ananias at this point. Was he feeling the need to establish his dominance? Was he even concerned that Baldwin was in there? And on the other side, was Baldwin going to pose a threat that Junia couldn't? Was he going to push Ananias in a way that he's never been pushed before? We were going to find out how this three-way dance was going to unfold. Would Ananias maintain his grip over this ecosystem and maybe even establish himself even further? Or would Junia or Baldwin overtake him? Even though I've had him in my care for quite a while, I'm still awestruck by the way this American toad looks. He's so different looking from Junia and Baldwin. Those dark eyes and the very different colored complexion really do make him stand out, and it's something that I can't get over. But that's not actually why he's the alpha male in these lands. It's because of his ferocity, his problem solving, his stealth, his power, and his ability to outcompete all of the other frogs and toads to stake his claim as the dominant predator in these lands. There's nothing that happens in this ecosystem that doesn't pass through Ananias first. It became clear that Ananias was starving and he was ready for a great meal. So I did what I was doing for Baldwin and Junia, and I began to isolate and feed him. But then after I got him caught up, I began feeding all of the toads at the same time, and it led to some very dramatic, epic, and really incredible scenes overall. Taking some time to observe both of these male toads, it's very clear how different they look whenever they're side by side. Ananias looks really different and also a lot more stockier with very muscular and long legs compared to Baldwin, who looks a lot more compact. I was trying to avoid a direct competition between the two of these toads because I didn't want there to be even more conflict. And as you could see, Baldwin began to show some aggressive behavior once Ananias gulped down an insect that he thought belonged to him. And then, of course, you have Junia popping in to try to showcase that she is in control. That action from Junia will not go unnoticed by Ananias. He is not Baldwin. He's not going to let her get away with pushing him around. He gets right in her face and goes at her. But he also likes to pick his spots. So right now wasn't the time. Right now was the time to get a meal and begin to think about his next move. So Ananias was fully concerned on what was on the menu, and then he would begin to showcase to both Baldwin and Junia why he was on top. This was one of the first times I've seen Ananias a lot more observational. He was trying to figure out who Baldwin was. Was he erratic and very confrontational like Junia, letting his emotions get the best of him? Or was he docile and calm, and could Ananias push him away and bully him out of food? This was one of the most interesting observations that I had seen, as Ananias was also observing and learning from Baldwin. This was one of the most unique encounters that I've seen between male American toads living inside an enclosure together in captivity. Way to break the fourth wall, Baldwin. It appeared that Baldwin understood that Ananias was observing him from afar, so he seemed to be a lot more reserved and calculated the way he attacked the dubia roaches, trying not to seem too erratic or too docile. not trying to give Ananias any weakness or opportunity to exploit him. Feeling satisfied from the interaction, he then turned his attention to Junia, realizing that it wasn't just a battle with Baldwin. He had to make sure that he outcompeted and outshined Junia as well, to make sure that she understood that he was still on top. So now he turned his attention to her. He soon began to realize now he had two threats to his throne rather than just one. It was very interesting to see how Ananias slowly realized that it was going to get a little bit more challenging if he was going to stay on top of this hostile environment. But if there's anybody who could do it, it's this very impressive specimen of a male toad, Ananias. After trying to spread out all of the American toads to try to isolate them and allow them to get their fill of the food, it became clear that as soon as there was an opportunity, all three of the toads wanted to take it. And there was a conflict that was going to be inevitable. Ananias was going to have to withstand both Baldwin and Junia at close quarters. The stage was getting set for a very epic and dramatic scene between all three American toads. As emotions run high and the tension continues to build inside this enclosure, it became clear that this standoff between all three was inevitable. How was Ananias going to survive and keep his spot as the dominant toad with now two very worthy competitors? The stage was set. Junia hasn't figured out that Ananias is playing off of her emotions. The more she's concerned about him, the more opportunity he has to take the food. And now with Baldwin in the mix, it's even more imperative that Junia focuses on the prey and pays attention, because now it's going to be gone twice as fast as what it was. It's been really amazing to see Baldwin jumping in the mix, making sure that he's not left behind. You can see how the change in heart and behavior of this little toad has become front and center ever since he's gotten more confident and even more established. Now he's going face to face with the best in the enclosure. He had to problem solve and figure out whether he was going to take the waxworm on the left, on the right, or directly in front of him. Thankfully, he didn't have to worry. He could get all three with the distraction between the other two toads. He used all of this to his advantage. This interaction showed me something that I already knew, but it completely reaffirmed Ananias. He's not just some dumb brute. He's very strategic, he's very calculated, he's a very good hunter, and he's going to take advantage of whatever opportunity is in front of him. This little toad has maintained his grasp on one of the most hostile enclosures for the American toads. The reason why I say that is because at any moment you can lose your position in this hierarchy, and even though the wood frogs don't care, the American toads do. And if you want to stay in the best shape of your life, you have to compete to eat. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Consider subscribing for more episodes of the Woods Uncut. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks.